Hello guys, today we are going to review the movie The Devil's Advocate that came in 1997, and today we are going to review this movie. So let's start it. The Devil's Advocate is a psychological thriller that slowly transforms ambitions into moral corrosion rather than uh, presenting evil as immediate or monstrous. The film treats it as seductive, intelligent, and patient as something that waits for consent rather than forcing itself. If we talk about ambition as the entry point, the film begins with ambition, not fear. Success feels unjustified, not and justified and even admirable. The protagonist's confidence becomes the gateway through which mm, a gateway through which temptation and nothing initially feels wrong, only rewarding. Will arise dressed as opportunity. If we talk about power that feels deserved, one of the film's strongest qualities is how power feel deserved rather than stolen. Advancement comes through skill, intellect, and recognition. This makes later sequences emotionally unsettling because nothing feels unfair, only costly. The danger is hidden inside merit. If we talk about psychological pressure, our supernatural shock. Although the film contains supernatural elements, its real tension is psychological pressure built through expectation, manipulation, and the quiet reshaping of values. The mind bends long before reality breaks. And if we talk about seduction through validation, the film's understanding temptation uh, deeply. Characters are not lured by fear but by validation. And if we talk about surprise, attention, and information being seen as expressed, become addictive, and approval becomes the trap. If we talk about moral lines that shift gradually, there is no single moment where morality collapses. Street lines blur slowly. Small compromises feel harmless, even logical, until their cumulative weight becomes undeniable. Corruption feels incremental, not sudden. And if we talk about urban grandeur as emotional scale, The city environment feels imposing and grand, mirroring the scale of temptation. Builds feel tall, spaces far feel vast, and individual feel small within system of power. The setting reinforces the insignificance. And if we talk about intellect as a tool of manipulation, the film treats intelligence as something that can be weaponized. Logic is used to justify immoral choices, making wrongdoing feel rational rather than reckless, and reason becomes dangerous. And if we talk about identity under pressure, as in ambition grows, identity begins to fracture. Personal values weaken under professional success. The film explores how easily self-concept can be reshaped by external reward. Success changes who you think you are. And if we talk about psychological isolation at the top, despite constant interaction, emotional isolation increases. Power separates rather than connects. Relationships feel strained and secondary or expendable. Relation creates loneliness. If we do temptation without host, the most unsettling idea is that evil never force choice, it waits upward and pursued responsibility always remains personal. And consent is everything. If we talk about overall reflection, the the Devil's Advocate 1997 is a slow burning psychological lesson discussed as a success story. It explores ambitions, morality, and temptation with patience and intelligence. Its strength lies in how convincingly it presents corruption at reasonable, even attractive until its cost becomes unavoidable. Let's talk more about it and have to wait for a little second because it's loading. Okay, so let's talk about temptation framed as freedom. The film presents temptation as liberation rather than restriction. Characters are encouraged to believe they are breaking free from limitation, not submitting to control. Corruption feels like self-expression. And if we talk about ego as the weakest point, ego becomes the most vulnerable entry point. Confidence only shifts into superiority, making resistance feel unnecessary. Pride removes uh, cautions, and if we talk about moral justification through success, Success itself become a moral shield, winning cases and gaining influence creates a belief that outcomes, merits, methods, victory divide ethics. And if we talk about psychological fatigue over time, the pressure doesn't explode, it exhausts. Constant expectation and performance wear down emotional resistance. The minds give in quickly. And if we talk about intimacy undermined by ambition, then personal relationships weaken as ambition demands for focused emotional presence become inconsistent, transactional, or dismissive, and love becomes secondary. And if we talk about manipulation without obvious lies, manipulation rarely involves direct lies. It relies on mission framing and selective truth. Reality is edited, not fabricated. If we talk about power as emotional addiction, then power begins to function like an addiction. Each achievement raises the threshold for satisfaction. Success never feels so. And if we talk about identity erosion through role play, professional roles start replacing personality identity. Performance becomes permanent, the mask stops coming off. And if we talk about the seductive calm of control, control of portrayed as calm, composed, and confident. The calmness makes manipulation feel trustworthy, danger speaks softly. And if we talk about moral conflict without immediate punishment, the absence of immediate consequence reinforces good choices. The film shows how delayed accountability encourages further compromise. Silence enable decay. And if we talk about its expanding reflection, The Devil's Advocate 1997 deepened its impact, but I am presenting evil as reasonable articulity and patience. It doesn't rely on fear but on persuasion. The film's lasting power lies in how convincingly it argues that corruption with often feels like choice, not coercion. And if we go for next, and if we go for its deeper view, then modern seduction need to go. The film's greatest strength is how it frames morality as negotiable. Characters are never pushed, they are invited. Every unethical step feels like a personal decision, not manipulation. And evil success because it feels voluntary. And if we talk about performances, driven intensity, A. Pacino's performance dominates without overpower. powering his calm confidence, controlled speech, and charisma make temptation believable rather than theatrically. And if we talk about fact, Pacino improves from parts of his longer monologue, adding rhythm and intensity that are not fully scripted. And if we talk about Keanu Reeves as moral anchor, Keanu Reeves play ambitions without arrogance. His character's eternal conflict is visible in hesitation rather than dialogue, making the descent feel casual and human. Fact and the fact is that Keanu Reeves accepted a pay cut so the studio could afford a high persona for the role. And if we talk about ambitions versus concept, cosines, the film positions ambitions as morally neutral, dangerous only when left unchecked. Success itself isn't uh, uh, condemned obsession with success is the fall comes from excess, not desire. And if we talk about visual tone and atmosphere, with warm interiors and luxury spaces contrasts with growing emotional emptiness, the visual richness masks moral decay. And if we talk about the fact that much of the film was shot in New York City using real high-end interiors to reinforce authenticity rather than stylized sets. And if we talk about psychological pressure on relationships, as power increase, empathy decrease, emotional availability fades quietly, creating distance without confrontation. Success isolates before it destroys. And if we talk about language as weapon, dialogue is sharp, persuasive, and intellectual arguments are framed to sound logical, not cruel. And the fact is, the screenplay was adapted from Andrew Needham's novel 1990, but the film significantly expanded the philosophical dialogue. And if we talk about ego as the gateway, confidence slowly becomes initialment. The character begins believing rules exist for others. Ego removes accountability and absence of immediate. If we talk about absence of immediate consequence, the film deals punishment intentionally. The lack of early consequence reinforces dangerous choices. And if we talk about the fact that the movie runs about 144 minutes, allowing moral decay to feel gradual rather than rushed. And if we talk about the cost of winning, then victory becomes hollow, the emotional cost outweighs professional reward, success feels empty when integrity is gone. And if we talk about ending and the conclusion, the conclusion reframes everything that came before, emphasizing responsibility and choice rather than fate. And The message is personal, not cosmic. And if we talk about additional facts, then its director is Taylor Hackford. It's a psychological thriller drama movie, and it's released in 1997, and it's R-rating movie. And if we talk about its music, then it's a James Newton Howard score emphasizes tension rather than horror. And if we talk about the final interaction, The Devil's Advocate 1997 is a slow, intelligent psychological thriller that explores ambitions, ego, and moral illusion with patience and realism. Its power lies in how conceivingly it makes corruption feel reasonable, even attractive before revealing its cost. And let's go for its more review. Then The Devil's Advocate 1997 extended review plus facts. Temptation presented as logic. The film consistently frames temptation through logic rather than emotion. Arguments are structured, calm, and persuasive. Nothing feels impulsive. Evil sounds reasonable. And law and moral battlefield. The courtroom becomes a symbolic space where the truth and victory are not the same thing. Winning matters more than justice. And if we talk about the fact that legal consultants were used to ensure courtroom procedures and dialogue felt authentic, even when dramatized. If we talk about charisma over it, then an antagonist never intimidates physically. His power comes from presence, confidence, and verbal control. And the fact is that Pacino studied motivational speakers and uh, corporate leaders to shape his performance styles. And if we talk about psychological manipulation through praise, praise is used strategically. Characters are rewarded emotionally for being compromised morally. Validation replaces restraint. And if we talk about New York as a character, the city feels alive and grand, past, and indifferent. It skills reflecting the insignificance of individual morality within system of power. And if we talk about the fact that several exterior shots were filmed in Manhattan's Upper East Side to emphasize wealth and influence. And if we talk about gradual loss of empathy, success, narrow emotional focus, concern for others becomes secondary to perform and reputation. Empathy fades quietly, the seductive comfort of power. And if we talk about power brings comfort, security, and admiration, the film shows how easily these comforts justify moral compromise. And if we talk about losers becomes camouflage, if we talk about identity conflict, The protagonist scenes of self-swills between who is he and who is becoming, and the fact is that Keanu Reeves trained with legal professionals to adjust posture and speech and courtroom confidence. And if we talk about moral consequence without preaching, the film never lecture consequence emerge naturally from choices. The lesson feels up, and if we talk about the role of free will, the narrative emphasizes choice. No one is forced, every step is accepted, and the fact is that the ending was altered from the novel to emphasize personal responsibilities or inevitability. And if we talk about score and emotional undergird, music is restrained, supporting tension rather than overpowering scenes. And the fact is that James Newton Howard used subtle motives instead of traditional horror scoring. And if we talk about the deep reflection, then The Devil's Advocate 1997 remains powerful because it treats evil as intelligent, patient, and polite. It examines how ambitions, ego, and validation slowly reshape morality. The film no, doesn't scare. It convinces the reveal is the cost. And if we talk about the more review of the movie, then we can go for it. Let's go for it. The movie and analysis. That make little more painful. Yes. Okay, then we started. And if we talk about ambition framed as identity, the film shows how ambition stops being a goal and becomes identity. The protagonist is no longer someone who wants to win, he becomes someone who must win. And if we talk about losing becomes unthinkable, winning as moral justification. Each courtroom victory reinforced the belief that results matter more than ethics. Success rewrite conscience, and if the fact is that courtroom scenes were shot in real court buildings to maintain authenticity rather than using studio sets. And if we talk about psychological isolation through elevation as professional status rise, emotional connections declines, power separates rather than protects. Loneliness is the hidden cost. And if we talk about manipulation without coercion, No threats are made, no force is applied. The film emphasizes persuasion, framing, and selective truth. And the fact is that the screenplay expanded the novel's antagonist role, giving him significantly more dialogue to emphasize persuasion. And if we talk about ego feeding on price, compliments becomes fuels being told he is exceptional, remove the need for self-reflection, ego blocks doubt, and if we talk about the comfort of moral delay, conscience arise late, allowing good choice to feel safe, and the fact is that the feels long when time was intentional, allowing moral decay to unfold gradual rather than abruptly. And if we talk about professional excellence versus human cost, the film contrasts professional brilliance with personal neglect, achievement replaces present, success demands sacrifice. And if we talk about dialogue as control mechanism, then words are used not to argue but to guide thought. And the fact is that many of Pacino's speeches were rehearsed repeatedly to maintain rhythm and clarity, even when partially improvised. And if we talk about free will emphasized our fate, the film repeatedly reinforced that every step is chosen. And the fact is that director Taylor Hackford has stated the story is about responsibility, not destiny. And if we talk about emotional consciences, sequences without melodrama, the film avoid exaggerated breakdowns, damage is shown through distance, absence, and silence. Pain is quiet. The illusion of being untouchable. Power creates a sense of immunity. Rules appear flexible until they are not. Confidence turns dangerous. And if we talk about final expanded reflection, the Devil's Advocates 1997 is a psychological thriller that examines ambitions not as evil but as a vulnerable human trait. It reveals how intelligence, validation, and success can slowly erode morality without violence or force. The film remains relevant because it understands that corruption often feels like achievement until it cost become unavoidable. And if we talk more about it more review, then let's load it, and like last time it will take some time too. And if we talk about the devil advocates for the depth plus facts, success redefining self-worth. The film shows how success quietly replaces self-worth, Personal value becomes tied to outcomes, not character. When winning defines identity, losing feels like eraser. Achievement becomes survival. And if we talk about moral blindness through repetition, winning repeatedly does ethical awareness. What once felt questionable becomes routine. And the fact is, the film deliberately repeats courtroom victories early on to show how easily success normalizes compromise. And if we talk about the psychological comfort of being chosen, being selected, praised, and elevated creates emotional security that secures discourages resistance, feeling special, weaken, chaos. And if we talk about authority without aggression, power is expressed calmly without anger or threat. Control feels neutral, almost benevolent. And the fact is that AI Pacino's character was written to avoid overwhelming, emphasizing frustration over intimidation. And if we talk about professional spaces replacing personal ones and office boardrooms and work environments dominate screen time as a personal space is lost importance work consumes identity. If we talk about ethics stated as flexible tools, morality becomes situation. Ethics are adjusted to better outcomes rather than guide behavior. And the fact is that the screenplay intentionally avoids clear moral commentary, allowing action to define meaning. If we talk about emotional neglect as a side effect of ambition, relationships erode not through cruelty but through absence and distraction. Neglect becomes destructive. If we talk about power creating illusion of clarity, it influence comes with confidence and the belief that judgment is superior. Certainty replace reflections. If we talk about the slow collapse of eternal resistance it fades quietly. There is no rebellion, only surrender through convenience. And the fact is that the film structure mirrors the decline with the fewer months of hesitation as it progresses. If we talk about consequences that feel personal, not cosmic, punishments is emotional and eternal rather than spectacular. Loss feels intimate. The final choice emphasized the ending reinforced agency. The film insists that no matter the illness size remains personal, and the fact is that director Taylor Hawkins changed the ending from the thought to emphasize accountability or inevitability. If we talk about deepening the reflection, The Devil's Advocate 1997 success because it understands corruption as gradual, intelligent, and voluntary. It presents ambitions as a neutral force that becomes dangerous only when left unquestioned. The film endures because it doesn't demonize desire. It exposes what happens when desire replaces science. And let's go for its further review. And if we talk about the Devil's Advocate 1992, it's deep review plus facts. The seduction of being in, receptable. The film highlights how being treated as irreplaceable accelerates moral decline, where the system signals that it needs you resistance feels irresponsible. Importance becomes endurance. Intelligence used as moral armor. Smart arguments shield unethical behavior. The sharper the intellect, the easier it becomes to justify compromise. If we talk about brilliance protects corruption. Emotional traits of hidden behind such a every game comes with emotional traits of time, empathy, resilience, the film shows those losses quietly accumulating, letting taken or it was, and if you talk about professional language, diluting morality, language becomes technical distance, seeing actions from their human impact, moral weight, it softened through professional phrasing, yet the script deliberately uses legal jargon to create emotional distance between action and consequences. If we talk about confidence replacing passion as authority, as authority grows, passion disappears, the child stop asking should and focuses only on can power, narrow perspective, the role of environment and temptation. Luxury environments normalize access, comfort, reduce resistance, and the fact is that many interior scenes were filmed in upscale real location instead of constructed sets to enhance realism and temptation. If we talk about psychological control without surveillance, there is no comfort, there is no consistent morning monitoring or enforcement controls offers to expectation and reward and freedom feels absolute until it isn't. And if we talk about moral silence from success, success silence inner conflict, the absence of inherent immediate pain encourages continuation. And if we talk about psychological control without surveillance, there is no constant monitoring or enforcement. Control operates through expectation and reward. Freedom feels absolute until it isn't. And if we talk about moral silence from success silence, inner conflict, the absence of immediate pain and courage continuation. And the fact is that the film avoids early negative consequences intentionally, delaying emotional recovery. If we talk about the illusion of antimony, and the protagonist believes choices are fully autonomous, even as often narrow choices exist, but context shape it. The weight of self-recognition. The most painful moments are not confrontation, but moments by we self-recognition. The understanding arrived late but clearly. If we talk about performances, contrast, and moral friction, one performances immortalize restraint and eternal struggle, while another represents indifference and confidence. Their contrast drives tension. And if we talk about the fact that the casting has intense, the contrast between acting style reinforce the film's moral conflict. And if we talk about reception and longevity, at least the film divides critics into resonated strongly with the audience, and and the fact is that box office our $150 million, alright, become a cult favorite due to its theme and performances. Frequently played. Uh, if we talk about why the film endures, the file remains relevant because ambitions, power, and validation never its questions are timeless, temptation, and depth to every ongoing reflection. The devil advocate is not about good versus evil, it's about permission. It examines how ambition, praise, and intelligence quickly rewrite values. Its strength lies in release. Corruption feels unjustified and chosen that honesty is what makes the film rich. And I think To go for more review. And if we talk about ambition turning into obligation, at a certain point, ambition stops being desires and becomes obligations. The protagonist no longer asks what he wants, he fulfills what is expected of him, and expectation become pressure. And if we talk about success, creating moral momentum, success builds momentum once moving forward, stopping feels uh, natural, even dangerous. Fact is that script is structured early wins closely together to recreate a sense of unstoppable rise. If we talk about emotional blindness through rise, constant rise reduce emotional awareness. Criticism disappear, and without friction, self-reflection fades. True reflects conscience. And if we talk about authority presented as manhood, power is shown as calm, generous, and supportive. This way, we develop makes manipulation called difficult to recognize. And if we talk about the cost of always being right, winning repeatedly creates the belief that being right equals being good. Accuracy replaces morality. If we talk about professional excellence masking human damage, the film shows how excellence can hide emotional neglect, competence, becomes an excuse for absence, and capability doesn't equally care. And if we talk about psychological control through opportunity are often not imposed each other narrow the pathway. And the fact is that the antagonist never issued direct comments Every step is framed as a choice. If we talk about emotional distance, growing individually, distance grows quickly without conflict or argument. Separation happens unnoticed. If we talk about personal identity replaced by function, the characters becomes valued for performance rather than humanity. Identity becomes utility. The weight of retrospective awareness. The most painful realization comes when two choices are seen clearly in hindsight. Understanding arrives too late to undo damage. If we talk about ending and moral reset, the conclusion reframes the story around choice, not punishment. If we talk about the fact that the ending was rewritten during development to emphasize accountability rather than inevitability. If we talk about cultural impact, over time, the film gained recognition for its dialogue and theme. And the facts are that frequently referenced for its philosophical monologues, often studied for its depiction of temptation and ambition. And we talk about considered one of the moral, intellectual driven thriller of the late 90s. And if we talk about final deep reflection, the Devil's Advocate 1997 endures because it refuses simply morality. It doesn't portray evil as chaos but as logic, comfort, and reward. It shows how easily ambition reshapes identity, not through force but through permission. The film lingers because its warning feels realistic, not mythical. Let's talk about its more review. Okay, the Tails Advocate deeper continuation. The slow disappearance of inner resistance. Resistance doesn't vanish through defeat, it fades through comfort. The film shows how ease and reward quietly silence moral friction. Comfort replaces action and once framed as professionally, decisions are presented as responsibility tied to role and reputation. Saying no begins to feel and feel unprofessional rather than ethical. Duty becomes a disgust. And if we talk about the emotional cost of constant performance, being exceptional demands constant performance. The film show how never switching off drains emotional excellence, exhaust immunity. And if we talk about power speaking through permission, the antagonist rarely instructs, he permits. Permission removes the sense of rebellion and replace it with acceptance. And the fact is that the character's influence is returned to function through encouragement rather than command, reinforcing voluntary corruption. And before going for further, let's and if we talk about moral fatigue setting in after a repeated compromise, morality feels tiring. The easiest path becomes continuation. Fatigue replaces struggle. If we talk about success creating emotional narrowing, as status increase emotional range narrows empathy, patience, and vulnerability. And if we talk about power simplifies feeling, language redefining reality. Words are carefully chosen to soften consequences. Harmful outcomes are reframed as necessary of inevitable. And fact is that the script intentionally avoids over moral labeling, allowing dialogue to justify action organically. If we talk about professional validation or personal truth, external validation overtakes inner truth. What others admire begins to matter more than what feels right. Apollo's drones conscience the absence of immediate punishment as permission. The film makes a clear point: when nothing goes wrong, anything feels allowed. And the fact is that negative consequences are delayed until late in the narrative to emphasize again. If we talk about the illusion of mastery, contrast feels complex and the belief in mastery confines the character to vulnerability, confidence hides regularity. If we talk about final stage of recognition, then recognition arrives not as shock but as clarity. The truth feels obvious in hindsight, and awareness hurt more than fear. And if we talk about the devil advocates, reflection is it's a psychological thriller about permission, not possession. It explores how ambition, intelligence, perish. It does quietly reshape identity and worthy. Its strength lies in restraint and really showing that corruption often feels like success while it's happening. This insights is what keeps the film relevant and unsettling. So let's restart the review and so if we talk about the psychology of being watched without surveillance, the film creates pressure without visible monitoring. Characters behave as if expectations are internalized. Control becomes self-imposed, and if we talk about moral choice hidden inside routine, ethical decisions are embedded in daily work, not dramatic moments. This makes compromise feels ordinary, wrong feels procedural, and if we talk about success accelerating emotional detachment, as detachment pile up emotional reaction dull wins stop feeling satisfying, yet failure feels unbearable. Ambitions empty itself. Authority that never raises its voice. Power in the film speaks softly, calm, confident, feels more persuasive than aggression. And if we talk about fact that AI Pacino initially intentionally avoided shouting or over-maniac in most scenes to make influence feel natural rather than threatening. If we talk about professional identify, overriding personal memory, the character begins to remember himself more as a role than a person. Function replace history. And if we talk about ethical slippage through comparison, morality shift by comparison, others do what this is normal here. Context executes coincidence. Emotional cost paid in silence, loss in expressed through absence, and rather than confirmation, relationships fades without dramatic relapse. Damage is quick. The comfort of belonging to power. Belonging to an elite circle feels validating, acceptance becomes addictive. Fact is that the film production design emphasizes exclusivity, private offices, closed spaces, limited access to reinform adultism, and if we talk about intelligence, creating distance from co-sequences, in, uh, high intellect allows co-sequence to be abstract, calm, feel theoretical rather than personal, smart thinking, numbs feeling, and the myth of control. The character's feeling is directing events while actually reacting to incentives. Her choice feels free but guides moral reckoning without external judgment. The reckoning is eternal, not imposed, and the film avoids courtroom justice or public punishment. And the fact is that the ending deliberately avoids legal or institutional consequences to emphasize personal responsibility. And if we talk about identity fragmentation at its peak success, at the height of power, identity is most unstable. Confidence speaks while self-knowledge collects, achievement hides emptiness. And why the film feels mature and the film trusts the audience, it doesn't explain morality. It demonstrates erosion, it assumes intelligence, not innocence. If we talk about long-term impact, over time the film has gained relevance as conversations around ambitions, work culture, and ethical compromise have grown. It questions is well, if we talk about its extended reflection, the devil's advocate endures because it The pieces to simplify evil, it portrays corruption as intelligent, polite, rewarding, and voluntary, by grounding depthness in ambition and validation. The film reveals how easily morality can be reshaped without force. That realism is its most unsettling achievement. And if we talk about its more review, then let's go for it. And when we talk about VR review, it grounded feedback, pushing deeper while staying inside the film. The Devil Advocate 1997 ongoing deep review plus facts. The comfort of moral expressionism aids success grows. The protagonist begins to feel moral expressional as if normal rules apply differently to him. The film shows how achievement quickly creates a sense of exemption. Success breeds entitlement. Ethical decisions framed as strategic, whose choices are no longer judged as right or wrong but as smart or inefficient. Ethics dissolved into strategy. Morality becomes a calculation. Emotional detachment as professional strength. The film subtly suggests that emotional detachment is rewarded, caring too much is framed as weakness. And the fact is that several scenes emphasize composure and control as professional virtues, reinforcing emotional suppression. And if we talk about the seduction of being understood, uh, the antagonist's great power lies in understanding ambitions without judgment. Being understood feels like permission, uh, acceptance, disarm, resistance. And if we talk about private doubt versus public confidence, eternally doubt flickers externally. Confidence must remain absolute, the spirit creates psychological strain. Performances replace honesty, and if we talk about power creating a closer moral system, once inside the elite circle, morality is defined eternally, external judgment losses relevance. And the fact is that the film repeatedly isolates character from ordinary environment, reinforcing moral principles. If we talk about the subtle flaws of self-reflection, reflection disappears not through arrogance but through momentum. There is no time to stop and question. Speed replaces thoughts. And if we talk about emotional erosion through normalization, what once shocked now feels routine. The film carefully shows this shit without dialogue. Corruption feels ordinary. And if we talk about the illusion of infinite choice, Opportunity appears endless, yet each choice quickly narrows the future. Freedom shrinks invisibly at every talk over. Responsibility deferred, not denied. The characters never deny responsibility. We postpone it, tomorrow become the place for ethics, delay animals, decay. And if we talk about psychological weight of recognition finally arrives not as fear but as clarity. The truth feels obvious in retrospect. Understanding hurts more than ignorance, and the fact is that cultural and critical afterlife. The film gained stronger appreciation years after release, frequently cited for its philosophical dialogue, often discussed in law and ethics decisions for its portrayal of emotions. Why the film still resonates? Because it doesn't rely on fantasy, it's danger in human ambitions, praise, ego, and perversion. The devil never needs for. And if we talk about some final reflection, The Devil's Advocate 1927 is a psychological thriller about how morality erodes quickly under success. It shows corruption and polite, intelligent, and rewarding. Never shouting, the lasting power comes from realism. The idea that evil doesn't arrive screaming but smiling, offering opportunity that truth keeps the film unsettling decades later. And if we talk about some more review, sorry for making you. Okay, if we talk about The Devil's Advocate 1997 different continuation, the normalization of moral flexibility. As the narrative advances, flexibility becomes a virtue. Being adaptable is prized while rigidity is treated as weakness. The film shows how this mindset quietly dissolve ethical that adaptability replaces principle, success turning into closed loop achievements feeds acceptations which feeds further compromise. The character becomes trapped in a loop where success justifies the next step. Meaning sustains itself. And if we talk about emotional intelligence, is for influence, understanding people's desires and fears becomes a tool for control rather than connection. Empathy becomes the tragedy. If we talk about professional validations, our inner the inner voice grows quieter as external validation grows louder. Um, Applause, warhelms, signs, approval drowns out. If we talk about authority without visible structure, power feels personal rather than institutional. Influence flows through relationships, not rules. Fact is that the film avoids depicting rigid hierarchies, emphasizing influence through proximity and trust. If we talk about the subtle pressure of belonging, belonging to an elite group creates pressure to conform even without explicit demands. Inclusion demands silence. If we talk about emotional compromise as a series of small yeses, no single choice is defined the wall. It's a chain of small agreements that feel aimless in isolation. Consent accumulates and confidence masking vulnerability. The stronger the outward confidence, the more fragile the eternal state becomes. Strength hides structure, moral legality framed, moral dialogue framed as philosophy. Ethical debates is framed an intellectual exploration rather than more judgment. And the fact is that the screenplay expands philosophical dialogues beyond the novel to emphasize persuasion or action. The absence of external validity. There is no constant visible threat. The danger feels conversational, almost friendly. Evil feels approachable. And if we talk about the cost of being exceptional isolates the character becomes admired but increasingly alone elevation creates distance. If we talk about the moment where choice is inevitable, eventually choices feels pre-made not because they are forced but because alternatives feel impossible. Freedom collapses quickly while the film feels uncomfortable because it refuses clear villains or easy blame responsibility remains personal. The mirror is the fit. And if we talk about ongoing reflection, the devil's advocate remains powerful because it exposes how ambitions, intelligence, and pride can gently reshape. Morality without violence on fear. It shows corruption as patience, reasonable, and voluntary. That really says more than any supernatural element is what makes the film linger. And let's talk about more review. So the David Shadowverse deep psychological continuation. The comfort of being right, the protagonist's confidence is rooted in always being right. The film shows how morally certainty can be as dangerous as doubt. Correctness becomes arrogance, and fit our winning as a moral justification. Success is not just rewarding, it becomes proof of moral superiority. If the outcome is favorable, the method feels validated. And if we talk about the disappearance of ethical language, words like right and wrong quickly vanish from conversation replaced by necessary and effective language reshape belief. And if we talk about isolation through elevation, higher status reduces exposure to dissent, the character hears less opposition, reinforcing distorted self-trust. And if we talk about fact, city as psychological landscape, New York is portrayed as seductive rather than hostile, a place of opportunity that rewards confidence. The environment supports temptation. And if we talk about temptation without punishment, for most of the film, compromise carries no immediate cost. The delay makes wrongdoing feel safe, consequences feel the theoretically. And if we talk about intellectualizing instinct, emotional discomfort is reframed as intellectual debate. Feelings are analyzed instead of felt, and analysis numbs conscience. And if we talk about power replacing intimacy, then professional power begins to subdue the emotional connection. Authority feels loneliness. If we talk about fact, that performance driven tension. Much of the film tension comes from performance and dialogue rather than action. Conversation is the weapon. And if we talk about the illusion of control, the character believes he is choosing freely, unaware of how much his choices are being guided. Controls feel mutual. The moment of recognition, when clarity arrives, is quiet. Not exclusive, realization is heavy, not dramatic. understanding settles slowly. The weight of responsibility the film increases to strict level. The final weight rests on choice. No excuse survives clarity. If we talk about why the film endures, because it presents reasonable perception and human. It doesn't attack belief, it questions motivation. Ambitions is the entry point, and if we talk about final continuing thought, the devil's advocate is less about supernatural level and more about voluntary surrender of ethics. Its horror lies in recognition. The unsettling idea that the unsettling idea that corruption doesn't require coercion, only opportunity and praise. And if we talk about its further deep dive, seduction through rational aspect, the antagonist never demands of audience. Instead, he offers respect for intelligence and ambition. This validates the protagonist's self-image. Respect becomes temptation. If we talk about the danger of being seen as special, being singled out feels affirming, but it isolates the character from moral equals. Special treatments rewrites standards. And if we talk about facts, source, material expansion, while based on Andrew Snyder's novel, the film explains the psychological conversations turning internal conflict into dialogue, inner struggle becomes persuasion, and if we talk about ambitions as identity, career success stops being something the character does, it becomes who is. Failure becomes existential, and if we talk about emotional neglect hidden by achievement, professional victories distracts from emotions erasing. Pain is postponed, not resolved. Success delays collapse. And if we talk about authority without accountability, the higher the position, the fewer the consequence a test. Visibly power feels concerned, consequence free. If we talk about the illusion of mutual benefit, every opportunity appears beneficial to all involved. Market manipulation with and control. Fact, minimal visuals or the film relies more on conversation and atmosphere than our horror imagery feed is intellectual. Choice presented as freedom, the film repeatedly frames temptation. The choice not coercion, voluntary corruption is central. If we talk about self-justification through comparison, the character compares himself to worse actors, using guilt, relative morality, comforts, and the final, if we talk about the final ethical mirror, the climax forces the protagonist to confront the idea that intelligence alone does not protect against moral failure. If we talk about awareness arrives too late, and why this film feels unsettling, because it suggests that corruption does not require desperation. If we talk about only ambitions, pride, and permission, the devil offers opportunity. If we talk about ongoing reflection, the devil advocates remain disturbing because it portrays evil as collaborative conversations and letting it warns that the most dangerous temptation are those that respect your intelligence and align with your goals. Let's go for more. Let's for the moral trips without crushes. The film avoids sudden moral collapse. Instead, ethics drift gradually unnoticed. Nothing breaks it bends. If we talk about ambition framed as responsibility, success is framed as duty, turning down opportunity feels irresponsible rather than ethical. If we talk about refusal feels like failure. If we talk about the fact that repetition as partial, key ideas are repeated in different contexts, simply reinforcing belief without confirmation. Frustration hides in familiarity, and if we talk about emotional cost deferred until it, the emotional consequences are delayed, making compromise feel sustainable. Pain waits patiently, and if we talk about power normalizing extremes, behaviors that once feel extreme slowly feel normal within the new environment, context, rewrite standards. If we talk about absence of immediate punishment, The film's most disturbing element is how long immortal choices remain unpunished. Silence encourages repetition. And if we talk about intellectual honesty as weakness, the belief that intelligence grants immunity becomes the greatest vulnerability. Smart people fall smarter. If we talk about the fact that music supporting theater, the score supports elegance and confidence rather than fear, aligning emotions with temptation. Sound invites, and if we talk about ethical blindness through momentum, momentum discourages reflection, stopping feels more dangerous than continuing. Speed replaces conscience, and if we talk about control disguised as collaboration, manipulation feels like partnership, making resistance socially uncomfortable. Control gives a smile, and the cost of rationalizing everything. When everything is rationalized, nothing feels wrong. Until it's too late, logic number instinct. If we talk about final ongoing thought, the devil's advocate Indians because it shows corruption as cooperative, attractive, and voluntary. It warns that moral failure often looks like a success from the inside. Moscow for its more review. Sorry for making you wait for a little, but and now if we talk about that ambition as a moral blindfold, the film shows how ambition doesn't destroy morality direction, it blocks the ability to see it. The character doesn't reject ethics, he simply stops noticing them. Blindness feels like focus. The reward system that trains corruption, every compromise is rewarded immediately. rise, money, status, all arise faster than doubt. The system teaches it. If we talk about confidence, reflection, self-questioning, early self-questioning disappears as confidence grows. The film makes it clear. Confidence is not clarity, certainty, silence, reflection. If we talk about emotional disconnect, discussed as strength, the character's emotional withdrawal is filmed on professionally feeling less is treated as gang up. Coldness looks mature. And if we talk about the illusion of neutral choices, many decisions that natural feels neutral, neither good for nor bad, which makes them easy to justify his neutrality hides consequences. So that was the movie review of this movie. I hope you like it, you enjoyed, and goodbye for now. Let's meet tomorrow. Okay, Tata.